All right, before we get started, I've been thinking a lot about this. Today is Friday. And I've been thinking we need a Friday song. You're with me on that?
Yeah.
You agree with me?
Yes. Is that a cat?
All right, here we go. First play.
In the middle, the middle one. The middle. There it is. Okay.
Okay. You want more, don't you? Okay, so we better get started.
No, I want good
Sorry, I'm in. Yeah.
No, you should start off.
Maybe laugh, don't laugh.
No, I really hope you.
I just like a nice wall.
Thank you. He's dressed like Mr. Peterson. It could be though. It's the one pair of sweats. I do that.
All right, here we go.
You need a whole new face.
Hey, let's get the lights. So can someone grip down? Yeah.
Thank you.
I think well, if there's any kind of, just limited sun the way it is at this angle today, sometimes it's almost impossible to see the screen. I've been in this room for 20 years. Okay, moving on.
Hello, everybody. I'm here to talk about how the Tupac is alive theory. It's really not a theory, because of course he's alive. It's obvious. Of course he's alive. And he may be a reptoid.
So are you done?
Yeah, this is pretty much it. Anyway, so
It's in your hand.
Still love it.
If you just, it's the lighting that button.
he keeps lighting the. Anyway, it's a time period. During that time in the 90s, there was the Rodney King trials. It was where this guy got beaten up by 3 LAPD officers, and when they went to the trial, they weren't tried. They weren't punished at all. The 3 other PD officers. That led into Los Angeles riots, which were like these big riots in Los Angeles. Big important thing. Also, it's the beginning of the internet, and that's pretty much the fuel for conspiracy theories. Is it allows people to talk about them more and get used to them. Anyway, so Tupac was born June 16th, 1941. 71. Sorry, my handwriting's awful. Also, most of his songs address social issues that were going on at the time, and he also deals with a lot of legal troubles, such as sexual abuse charges. So he was shot once in early 1994 over his legal troubles. He was like shot 5 times in a I think it was in a New York recording studio, and he lived through that. Then he served 8 months in prison due to those sexual abuse charges. Then he was shot 4 times by a drive-by shooter in Los Angeles on September 7th, 1996. They took him to a hospital immediately, and he died 6 days later. Died 6 days later. Anyway, so a lot of people thought that it was Notorious B.I.G. because him and Tupac had like a big rivalry. Then also some people said that it was the CIA who wanted to silence him and took him in for like questioning and stuff and had him as a witness. Also, his producer, his like executive producer at I think it was Death Row Records, because Tupac looked like he was in a good acting career and looked like he was going to leave, and he really didn't want that. Anyways, a lot of reasons for the theory said he was a young man who people didn't want to believe he was dead. He had such a great career ahead of him, and nobody really wanted to believe that he was dead. And then also nobody saw the body. Like the last picture that was taken was right before he got shot, and then nobody has any other recording of him except for at the hospital. Then the proof that he's not dead is that the coroner report listed him at 215 pounds. And before that, it was 50 pounds lighter than he actually was, which was reported at 165. Also, the autopsy report isn't available to anyone. Like, nobody knows about it. And then nobody can find the person who cremated Tupac. Apparently, he was like paid like $3 million to do it, and then he like disappeared off the earth. And then there's also multiple lyrics in his songs that came out after he was dead, talking about how like Jesus and like returning and coming back from the death. And also, a lot of people say they saw him in Cuba, like this photo right there. There he is in Cuba. And the long-term effects that there's still a lot of people today who believe he's still alive. Like this is still a big thing going on. Like it's still a huge conspiracy. Also, there's also sort of same thoughts for like other celebrities that died, like young ones especially. And then this theory today, a lot of people thought that he'd come back in 2003 because of certain lyrics in some of his songs. It's also like I saw a lot of news articles published in like 2022 talking about this theory, which is really funny because it happened like 26 years ago. And they're like still coming up with new evidence today, which is weird. And then there's still like a bunch of like Reddit groups and like other stuff on the internet talking about this. And it's really, in conclusion, Tupac is alive. According to this. He is in Cuba.
Just saw the picture.
You did not see the clear evidence. That's all. There's my resources. Thank you.
Always be funny in the news. I've seen that too. I remember someone said it's so weird because he died in the hospital.
People do like.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I wish it didn't happen, but people die in hospital.
A lot.
And the other one is, are autopsy reports open to people? You just go look at some. Hey, this autopsy looks fun. But yeah, that they must be hiding something, right? It's. I think we need.
Just whichever one's like.
I'm thinking we need to go to there.
Oh, yeah.
And then we're going to do a soul cycle.
That was the first one.
We're going to hit all the great cities. What's that? Yeah, we're going to change it real quick. All right, oh, by the way, this is without a doubt, therefore, the greatest airport ever.
No, it's me.
No, I always.
It's still.
I've been to Denver Airport.
Okay, go.
Okay, so basically, I just did like really the Denver airport. I had some Illuminati history in here, but mainly the Denver airport. And there's like many different conspiracies. One, the airport, as you can see in this picture, is very isolated to like everything. So people wonder like, well, what's going on there then? And it costed $2.8 billion over budget. The initial budget was $2 billion, and it costed 4.8, which people are like, okay, well, where did all that money go then? Then the secret tunnels. People think that There are tunnels under the airport that lizard people or aliens can hide away as like a hideaway base. They believe that the Illuminati has funded the tunnels to have their own secret meetings in there for the headquarters. And then some believe, not as many believe that it's like an special agent North, which
You know what NORAD is?
the defense system.
Underground China.
Yeah, and that's in Colorado Springs. And this is in Denver. So. And then this one has like some Illuminati history. The Illuminati was actually like a real group from 1776 to 1785, and Adam, but I don't really know how to say that name, was the founder of it. And obviously, the Illuminati was there to like promote ideas among leaders and take control and influence elections. And only at the peak, they only got to about 650 to 2,500 members. And this was just a fun fact that I like, but they did not trust anybody over the age of 30 because they were too old-fashioned. But basically, they once again believed that they funded the airport and to have the headquarters. This is some of the artwork. But they believe that they were foreshadowing apocalyptic events to happen in the future. And another one, popular one, is that it represented like the Holocaust and stuff with the gas mask and stuff.
Yeah, you see the gas mask on the bottom right there?
Yeah.
That's in the Denver.
Yeah, and these murals, they're like huge. They're like 28 feet wide. It's crazy. And these are the guardrails. And they actually, for a little bit there, they put a talking one there to talk about the conspiracies that would interact with them. This is Lucifer, the blue Mustang. Did not tell, go off, and Lucifer. It is well, the artist was I don't really know how to say it either. But it's a 32-foot blue Mustang with piercing red eyes that stands on its hind legs. People believe that represents the four horsemen apocalypse a lot of the time. And while the artist was actually moving it to continue building it, it fell on him and pinned into a beam, and it led to his death. So many people believe that's also another reason why it leads to that. But after he did die, his son took over the project, and he's actually the one that put the red eyes in honor of his father, who owned a neon shop sign. So, and this one's a little harder. Like, so they believe that so they have this plaque up front, and with the symbol they believe is like a Mason symbol that represents the Mason and the Illuminati. And then they also say that the runways it should be in the swastika, but without the outline of it, I cannot see it like at all. So who knows? And then they also did a lot, like the airport realized that people were making all these assumptions about it. So what they decided to do is like make jokes out of it and lean into it because they realized that they can make a lot of money. And they did. They made 1.5 million. And they created a whole website off of like making jokes. This is the damn files. And I don't know if anybody can read that, but I said, what are we doing? Adding amazing new restaurants and bars, building Illuminati headquarters, and remodeling the richest people's layers.
That's a real ad.
Yeah, the
That's
whole
clever.
website has little ones like that. And like I was talking about, the talking gargoyle was also.
Talking Gargoyle. So do you have a voice? I went actually trying to go listen to the Talking Gargoyle, but I couldn't hear
I don't know. I didn't put it on the should have, but I saw a YouTube clip of it. It's pretty cool.
it.
Yeah. And then debunk. There really is no solid evidence to a lot of these. Like the secret tunnels were actually luggage, but they just no longer use them anymore. And they're really all forest traps, and I do not believe them. Most of them can be explained. And there's resources.
So you don't believe it? You're part of the cover up too.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, that airport is creepy. All right, good. Rick brought up a good point with that Mustang. You literally drive in and it's right there with these bright red eyes, and it is freaky. It's like, whoever thought of that? Lucifer. Yeah. All right. So we've been to Denver. We got to go someplace else. We can only go one place. Philadelphia.
Right.
It makes sense, right? Or do you mind Friday on your mind real quick? No. Thank you. Give me a second. Start coming up.
All right.
Huh. Oh, it like froze for a second.
Ah,
So I have all the power, with the boss ones over there. Didn't like that.
cool.
All right, give me 1 sec. Okay, go.
All right, so as Partridge introduced with, I'm talking about a little conspiracy called the Philadelphia experiment. So right, so full story, just to get that started out with. So yeah. Yeah, so basically the theory starts out with saying that the United States government was testing out this new unified field theory between about electromagnetism that Einstein didn't publish, and they were using it to make invisibility technology for military purposes, and they did this out in the Philadelphia Naval Yard. So instead of making their boat invisible, as the story goes, they actually teleported it a few miles south to Norfolk, Virginia, for a few minutes. And when it eventually teleported back, and when it got back, there were actually some, as the story goes, there were some pretty severe side effects for the crew, such as the most like dramatic one being some of the crew were apparently fused into the sides of the ship, or some of them went insane, got turned inside out, stuff like that. It's just absolutely crazy.
Okay, so minimized and just got turned inside out.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a little thing.
Just a little thing, yeah. So some background to the story when it came about. So at the time it was 1950s. The Cold War was just getting started.
With the conspiracy.
Yeah, when it actually came out. The Cold War was starting. There were a pretty big civil rights movement, and also there was the invention of the atom bomb, which, as a form of military technology, sort of really big. Yeah. So it started out in late 1955 with a package that the Office of Naval Research got titled, labeled Happy Easter. Yeah, makes sense. And it was sent by this one guy called Carl M. Allen. So inside of the package was this book by this ufologist and author called Morris K. Jessup. You might have heard some of his books. Yeah, basically inside there was a bunch of annotations about the content about the book, and it talked about how, well, alien technology and how Jessup got pretty close, and it made passing mention of this guy named Franklin Reno and some stuff, and him doing like research in the Philadelphia Naval Yard, which talked about the experiment. So basically, what in a few letters that Allen sent to Jessup himself, he talked about his own account of the story, where he was apparently stationed in Norfolk aboard the SS Andrew Forsyth, and he saw the boat. He saw the boat teleport just off of the coast and then disappear. And he talked about later, like hearing reports of the side effects, which were actually pretty mild. It actually didn't include like some of the more dramatic things, like the people teleporting into the sides of the boat and that kind of stuff. It actually just, yeah, pretty nothing that extreme. And when Jessup asked Allen about it, he actually cited this non-existent news article by newspaper in Philadelphia. Great. So after getting this package, and the Navy brought Jessup in for investigation, and they looked at some of the letters and realized that some of the writing was the same, so they knew that they had to like the same person behind all of this. And so they sent two officers on this. Their names were George W. Hoover and Sidney Sherby, and they just tasked with investigating the truthfulness behind this. And yeah, so in this process, they talked to this guy called Austin Stanton, who ran a manufacturing company called the Varro Corporation, and during so Stanton printed out a bunch of copies of the annotated version of Jessup's book that the owner had received, and that copy was eventually known as the Varro edition. So the story wasn't really popularized around when it first came out. It was more so popularized in the late 70s. So it started out with this novel called Thin Air, which was a conspiracy thriller about technology from the Philadelphia experiment being used in military activities. And then after that came out, well, Invisible Horizons was the first book to talk about that. Yeah, similar novel. But there was actually the most influential book on it was this book called Project Invisibility that came out in 1979, which popularized the story and actually created a lot of the more like dramatic aspects of it, like I've mentioned before, which you think that the actual officers who reported to see it would mention at all. Yeah. Yeah, this book was a Project Invincibility, and the story inside of it was actually loosely adapted into a movie in 1984, which, yeah, even for to spread the story further. So, yeah. Yeah, here's the poster for the movie. So, did it happen? No. No. But there is actually some scientific truth behind the boat teleporting, which all of these have a grain of truth of some kind. So there's this idea in quantum mechanics that originated in 1926 called probability clouds, which essentially states that matter doesn't have one set position, but instead it's over sort of a bell curve. So there's a very low probability that an entire boat and its crew could be teleported to south due to small quantum fluctuations in its atom. But yeah, really, really unlikely, but possible.
One in 10.
What?
1 in
10. Yeah, 1 in 10.
1 in 10.
Yeah, just remember. Yeah, so this is not what they use to justify the boat teleporting in the actual conspiracy. They use properties of electromagnetism, as I said earlier, which for one thing, they said they used electric generators to manipulate the light around the boat, which would not work at all since light isn't charged. But also basically, it wouldn't really even make sense under the theory that I talked about. So there's also the location of the Eldridge at the time. The Eldridge was stationed in New York at the time of the experiments, and yeah, there weren't any records of it being moved until a few years down the line when it was sent to Barbados. I believe it was the Bahamas where it was sent to for just an initial voyage. And then there's actual veteran testament of people who were known to be aboard, to be stationed around the area, like in the two places where the book was supposedly. And they have no recollection of this event at all. So, and then there's the founding date of the ONR, who would have been the people behind this, and that was a that was a that was quite a that was a few years after the experiment purportedly took place. So, yeah. So there's some of the inspirations for this story could have been degaussing, which was basically a method that the Navy used to make their boats quote unquote invisible from mines at sea. Then there was the story of the USS Timmerman, which was basically testing an experimental power source inside of the boat, which had a bunch of which had electricity arcing off of it, just because whatever. Yeah, and then there's in some of the sources I found it's talked about Alan's past a bit and how apparently according to his family he was a master leg puller. So yeah. And very yeah. Exact quote apparently. Yeah. So yeah. Amazing.
Any questions on that? So it happened during World War II, supposedly.
Yeah. Yeah. Around the any questions at all? All right.
All right, good job. That's it. If you continue to be mean to me, I'll make you watch the movie Philadelphia Experiment. It's worse than you think. Oh, I saw it.
Like, did you see it on purpose or was it like?
I think we actually did because we were bored.
Oh.
That's back when we used to go to movies a lot more.
You took his notes.
He told me.
I'm sorry.
You want to learn about Hitler? Let's do it. Oh, we got two different, not, your Holocaust, we do Hitler first, so on. Let me get the mouse over there.
Okay.
Right.
So who's Hitler? Hitler was the leader of the Nazi Party during the Second World War, and he was born on April 20, 1889, and supposed to die on April 30, 1945. His cause of death was like he committed suicide, taking a cyanide pill and shooting in his head. It occurred in his bunker, which was called Bunker in German, and he was accompanied by his wife, Eva Braun. This is a picture of the bunker where he killed himself. And why did the theory occur? This theory was promoted by fake news in newspapers, most of all. Also, Stalin, who was the leader of the Soviets by that time, asserted that Hitler wasn't dead. But later I'm going to talk about that. So another idea was that Hitler's followers didn't want to feel marginated and alone in the society because Hitler died. So. Then the theory, as I said, the theory was promoted most of all by Stalin, that asserted that Hitler didn't actually die and he escaped to another country that could be Spain, because Franco was there. It was a dictator in Spain at that time. And then the most believed theory is that he went to Argentina or other countries in Latin America, but most of all Argentina. And well, there is a
Go back.
Yeah. Thank you. I put here a picture of a newspaper of that time.
When was that? What year was that?
I think it's before he died, but I think it was 1939.
No.
And here are some FBI documents that are talking about, I don't know, things looking for him. I don't know. There are a lot of there are just one page and things like that. But there are many, I don't know. And this was 200 and more pages of documents. So there's a lot of investigation about this. Then here is a picture where you can clearly see that is Hitler. And his Brazilian lover in Brazil. So you can clearly see that he escaped to Brazil.
Can't argue that.
And why is this fake? The theory was demonstrated fake when scientists and Hitler's doctor, when he was alive, analyzed his remains like dental bridges and found in his bunker. Even the woman that analyzed the dental bridges went to jail after that. They think it's because of that. So, and they said that they took pictures of Hitler and more people in South America, and they were demonstrated that they were fake. And here are like these are the teeth. Yes. And here is another image of the teeth things. In my opinion, I think this theory is fake, and people started thinking like this, like in a trial of self-delusion, and feel more accepted in society. I also think that maybe it was to convince other people and never forget about Hitler. And that's it.
Is that picture like supposed to be him, like different?
Oh yeah,
ages?
like how can he look after he died?
Okay, Hitler with a beard is even more creepy. So, yeah.
It looks like
We just-
Peter.
So you're saying he's alive still,
Um,
and he's what, 131 years old?
maybe
Probably.
we don't know.
Yeah, all right, yeah, that was, I was told, I remember I had a teacher in school at my junior highs who said, you know, there's good theories that Hitler's alive and aren't either.
There are some.
Yeah, there's some good theories, as in none. All right, good job. Well done. So sticking with the same theme. And who's gonna do with the theory that Rome didn't happen?
Well, that was me as well. I'm very good at proving things never happened.
Give me 1 sec.
Alright, so
Wait.
I also don't have my paper, so it's kind of off the top of my head. I also forgot my journal too, so it's left mouse, right? Well, what is Holocaust denial? Holocaust denial is kind of like a thing that anti-Semitic and neo-Nazis kind of used to try to justify themselves, and that Hitler wasn't bad because Holocaust never happened, that they never went and killed all those Jews. People that are going and saying this theory is more Nazi supporters and people that believe in Nazism, which is
I got one in T.
yeah,
Nazi, yeah.
I see.
Okay.
Nazism. So
I'm making fun.
is there evidence? Technically, they say there is because they make up their own evidence. So they say there is evidence where
Who's that man?
I didn't click any of these. Can we go back to those?
Go back.
Yeah. There's apparently a Nazi or like a neo-Nazi. That's all I got from Bing.
What is his name up there again? See if I recognize the name. I can't recognize the face.
It's supposed to be words that I don't know what happened to them.
I can't recognize the face, so I'm not sure who it is. Okay.
You skip over it or?
I'm touching.
Okay, well, so there were never that many Jews. That's one thing they used to say, that there were never like 6 million Jews, or the figure that they say were killed in the Holocaust. They said that there was like 12 million, or 12, not 12 million, 12,000 to like 100,000 Jews in total in that area, but and Hitler never signed anything because technically he went after his euthanasia act. That if he signed it, he's gonna get backlash and all of that because he signed the euthanasia act for. Was it Jew? Who was it that he signed the? I believe it was Jews and
He did sign one for, people who were mentally ill.
yeah, it was mentally ill and disabled people. He signed the euthanasia act for them. So he never signed anything for the eradication of the Jewish people, but it was through word. And the shaman. Got my thoughts on this one, but there were anti-Nazi depictions and paintings apparently in the shaman, which is that was the Chinese. Is the shaman the Chinese book of faith?
Yeah. I gotta look up your paper.
And the summary theory. It's kind of about anything negative towards anti-Semitic people or the Holocaust in general. I don't believe in it personally because I agree with logic and the facts. Holocaust happened. That's true.
Yes, it did happen. Yeah. That's what you're gonna say about the shaman. One thing about that, is that in the news right now?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot, anti-Semitism is clearly on the rise. It's actually terrifying, especially to, my niece and nephew are Jewish, so it's very terrifying. But, real quick, one thing about this is that, okay, so anti-Semitism is on the rise, and Kyrie Irving, who plays basketball for the Brooklyn Nets, was literally just suspended indefinitely for promoting anti-Semitic movie that basically says the Holocaust was not real. And he refuses to apologize because he's I don't know how to describe him, but literally just today, he's been apologizing to them. I'm sure he's now apologizing because he's probably spent all of his $35 million in the contract. But it's actually kind of terrifying how many people say they believe that now. And a lot of them are running for office right now in the United States. So with that, on that happy note, so we start or go?
Yeah, no,
Let's do it.
So, okay, I'm gonna have to write on the whiteboard a little bit. How do I get that thing to go up? Do I just do it on the bottom?
Science.
Perfect.
Want me to do it? Well, here, just kind of pull it down, just pull it down a little bit. Just give it a little shutdown and then. Now your mouth will erase a few things.
Perfect. I'll do that now. I can erase all this.
Yes, it's gone. Goodbye.
Outline is awesome.
It was good to be underlined.
Right on the front only.
Quit whining.
Isabel.
Quit.
Hey, look, I got a good brain on. Right.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
They need the evening.
That's what it was. You're gonna leave.
All right.
All right. Right. Okay, so first of all, and most importantly, reptilian speech, commonalities, and alleged recorded evidence. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay, so that was just my joke slide. So this I'm gonna talk serious. Yeah, no way. Well, everyone was straight faced. I thought you were gonna laugh. So this, I'm talking about the kind of stuff leading up to the January 6th riots at the Capitol, which a lot of that had to do with election fraud, conspiracy theories that the election, that there were extra ballots or that there weren't enough ballots or that the election was stolen. And this isn't necessarily a new thing. It's just that the claims have never been on this scale, and the not necessarily made by that big of a figurehead in the United States, the president. So he had massive support and still does have massive support in the country. He is the leader of the Conservative Party, the Republican Party, and a lot of what he said and how he said it at rallies and different events that he put on, and even through media like Twitter, was really motivating for people, which is what made this scary, because all of this is not true. Like there's no evidence, either factually or legally, the Supreme Court overturned all of his. There was one lawsuit that went that far, but that was overturned. He was wrong, right? That was not true. All of these, so this one doesn't have a date on it, but this is November 5th, this is November 4th, right after the election. So he started these claims that the election was stolen before he knew that he had lost, which didn't happen for another couple of months because there were so many recounts in some Keystone states. So, you know, they're trying to steal the elections, words like that. And there were content moderations on Twitter that were saying, no, this is not necessarily true. But for a lot of his supporters, that wasn't necessarily what was. So you guys are going to recognize a lot of these people. But a lot of these, Marjorie Taylor Greene is one that was very prominent in spreading this election fraud stuff, and she still does a lot in her campaign message and her advertisements on TV and stuff. And she doesn't have access to Twitter, and she's actually been stripped of her process, but it's a different story. Rudy Giuliani was his lawyer, and Sidney Powell was another one of his lawyers in a lot of these lawsuits, and not one of these. Mike Pence was the vice president at the time, and when he actually certified the elections on January 6th, there was a lot of pushback towards him by a lot of Trump supporters, which was really hard because that was the vice president. Nancy Pelosi is the Speaker of the House, and so she had to do a lot of managing people when they were moving into a safe area for members of Congress to be on January 6th. Benny Thompson and Liz Cheney. Benny Thompson is the chair for the January 6th committee in the House, and Liz Cheney is one of the vice chairs. But what's prominent about her is that she's actually a Republican who did not support the election fraud claims, and which was, I mean, pretty controversial for the Republican Party. Still, right now, they just subpoenaed him. So, but a lot of those claims were about mail-in ballots, and like I said, they were all statistically that doesn't happen. Voter fraud doesn't happen, but legally, to the Supreme Court, they did not see that either. They said, no, this isn't true. We're throwing out these lawsuits. That's not what happened. This is kind of what I narrowed it down to, obviously a simplification, but motivations for that are going to be money, power, and ignorance of mostly the people who were actually committing crimes on January 6th. So that's where I'm going to do drawing.
I just like your pictures of it.
Oh, yeah. That was because Isabel and Ian were mocking me so heavily about the content of this. So I didn't know how to use the design. Okay. This is okay. So I'm just gonna write on the card. Okay, so start with money because that's easy to figure out. A lot of motivation for this is because people want to have money. Post-election, there were a lot of campaign emails sent out to stop the steal to a lot of Trump supporters, and that was he made money from that directly. That was money going to him right after the election, before January 6th. And so that kind of encouraged supporters to give him money, even though he was not going to get into power. The more important part about this, I think, let me grab this, is actually power. So a lot of conservative politicians and current, especially legislators in states like Montana, have used these election fraud claims to get elected, using that as a platform. We need to make sure that our elections are safe, secure, and so that gets these politicians elected. And then when they're in power, they can use that to make legislation to make elections more safe, but when in reality, that's not the end goal. The end goal is less people can vote. So in Montana, this is a specific Senate bill from the last session, but bills like this, Senate Bill 169, would limit student voters, so young voters, from using their student IDs as voter ID. So you'd have to have your student ID and another form of ID, which is difficult for a lot of students in just because that's what you use as your ID. Students, if you don't have a driver's license or, whatever, if you're moving from a different state, it becomes difficult. So politicians will get elected and then use that platform that they got elected by and make laws based on that, right? So then it's just difficult because that's the fraud claims made by the former president really damage elections because it damages the amount of people who can vote. So then we talked about notable people. I'm just going to run through these quick because it's easy. Marjorie Taylor Greene is kind of one of the up there ones. She got elected based on that. That was one of her biggest campaign platforms, and it worked for her. Rudy Giuliani.
Where was Green from?
Georgia. Yeah. And Rudy Giuliani is the lawyer. He does not have his license to practice law in New York anymore. That was stripped of him after these lawsuits because these claims were so damaging. Mike Pence was the vice president. I'm actually going to move slides because I have a really scary image on the last slide. So the last couple slides are just pictures. This is from January 6th. Just kind of the amount of people that President Trump motivated to riot at the Capitol, and that was through social media primarily. But this is the one that's the scariest to me. There was a Twitter hashtag that was trending, "Hang Mike Pence," because he was actually supporting verifying the election because that's his job as the vice president. And so there were a lot of people on January 6th, and then there was this is just a particularly harrowing image. There were people in Trump's inner circle that left him right after he started making these claims. Bill Barr was his attorney general, and he resigned before the election. And Kellyanne Conway was one of those. Was she press secretary, and she resigned shortly after these claims were made. But now, kind of the important part now is that this is still ongoing. All of this is still happening. And the January 6th committee in the House has just subpoenaed President Trump. And so that's kind of where we're at with this, is that fraud that he claimed led to riots at the Capitol that were incredibly dangerous. There were several Capitol police officers that were killed, and then a lot of kind of scarier laws passed that limit voters. And then now he's being subpoenaed, and that punishment for him is kind of up in the air right now. So especially in a midterm election year, a lot of this stuff is coming back after not really hearing about it since 2020. So yeah, pretty scary stuff. There you go.
So you don't believe there was a conspiracy that the civil election?
The theory was that there was voter fraud, and I don't.
Yeah, okay. There's only like 66 lawsuits.
Yeah, there were only.
All right, good. States are election deniers running for office. I'm gonna add one thing. Everyone, Senate Bill 169.
It was overturned.
Yeah, a judge had put a stay on it. And so they can't use your college ID.
Yeah, you can now, yes.
But,
Your college student. That was actually, so I was a part of an organization that was one of the plaintiffs. for
Oh,
that
good.
lawsuit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
all right then. Nice job, everybody. Good presentation. Well done. So then. Everyone, goodbye. Have a good day. Have a good weekend. Right when you find work, ain't by your thumb.
Write to him when you get it done. Then he can take all of your money.
Oh, right, when you get.
And ain't by your thumb.
It's the roster.
Okay, let's.
I got
let's
some
better
boss.
ways.
You know,
Oh, yeah. Okay. I think we have.
You were trying to dig.
Yes, I know. I was the same dumbfounded look, didn't I? Have a good weekend, everybody. Goodbye. Nice job, everybody. Well done. Great shirt, Ethan. You make that work. I mean, you and I too. No one else could do this. No offense. No one else. Just. That's a little too far. We don't want to be the trend. We get a lot of copycats. After your old stomping ground, huh? You miss it down here too, don't you? Yeah, I can tell from that expression, right? You miss it? Yeah. And immediately start giggling, yeah? See ya. You more miss my classes. You can see it in their eyes.
You missed your class and you have to.
You've been my class, been in my class.
You're not here.
No, I don't, everything I understand is not fun at all. It's gonna be.
That's the way I was going to. I don't have to get. I think you need 2 hours, but that's choice.
Get one big syringe, you get it all. Got that here. Right, kids.
Because they're under 8, they have a different.
Oh, you're right.
And they try to do that, like, they go, if they can, yes. That's what last time I had to get. I gave it to. Well, my daughter's sick, big deal. It's a little free. But I didn't. Well, and it's ridiculous. There was. I should get some inputs.
You should. Especially when it's the right decision. Tell me.
I'm here to like say, we have to do the same, like I can take into consideration some of the big items. You know, I guess we can something like.
30 seconds, go. 15, 10, 8, 14.
Yes. Basically, yeah. Your thought process. If you, and listen to me, if you were longer than 5 minutes, Bob, it's right down here. Why are you going up the stairs? I don't think that's a good thing. It's just not supposed to go. Right, I'm warning you. I'm not asking you to run, it's 5 minutes.
I'm back in 5 minutes, I can.
So on order instructions.